Good morning and welcome to welcome to Sports Tech live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with producer Alden Iowani. Our special guest today is Las Lunas head football coach Jeremy Maupin. We had Las Cruces head basketball coach Will Benjamin on last week. And Coach Maupin, thanks again for joining us. One of the things you and I talked about is everybody kind of being out of sync. And Coach Benjamin brought that up last week. Now, Roger Holian and I have covered a lot of football games down in Las Lunas. And, you and I talked last Saturday, and, one thing I missed watching the Tigers come out of that tunnel, right? The band, the ambiance. I don't think I got chills when those games went on, right? They're exciting. Plus, the Tigers played a high brand of football, state 4A runner-ups the last 2 years. You also coached at Artesia, taking over in Las Lunas in 2017. So, again, thanks so much for joining us, Coach. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm doing really well. Yeah, it's crazy times, but doing as best as I can.
Coach, you also, we'll get into what you do out there. You also teach some government classes, some advanced government and economic classes. And when you and I talked last night, I was real interested in those. Highland teachers, back when I went to Highland, and had such an influence on me. I had one of the best teachers in the state, in Mr. Figge. And I never forgot that. One of the halls is named after him at Highland. Figge Hall. And so I was lucky to have one of the Figges. They're brothers. And I think the impact the teachers have, you and I talked about this. Now, Coach Benjamin mentioned this, and I asked him this. Normally around this time of year, you're preparing for your next game, and we're going to go into some plays in our next segment. You're one of the most innovative offensive minds, I believe, in the state. No question about it. Defensively, too, your Tigers are playing at a high level. You've had some great success out there. The last 2 seasons, exciting, right? It's exciting to watch Las Lunas football, no question. But, Coach, you're more than that, more than a football coach, and that's not knock on you at all. But the overall effect on the Las Lunas community right now, as far as the students, right, and not just the football players, although it's an effect on them too, but the other students, the cheerleaders, the other ones, the DECA Club, the ones that are affected every day on this online learning. You and I talked about it. Talk a little bit how it is out there in the Las Lunas community.
Yeah, I mean, we just had a parent-teacher conferences last week, so we were calling on, all the parents of our advisory kids, and I would say, good 75% of the parents you talk to, they're really just, the kids are struggling. It's a different time. It's online learning is hard. I do think, one good thing about our district is we were already 1-to-1, so every kid in every high school here already had a laptop. Which, I think puts us ahead of a lot of other places out there. And then pretty much every elementary school and middle school at least had the capacity with iPads to be able to get every kid one of those. But, there's some good with that. I think we live in a technological world, and it's forced a lot of teachers and kids to learn how to do things. At the same time, I think all the data, points that online learning is not the best. It's a hard situation. Our class time went down a lot, and, it's hard with kids turning their videos off and those things to even see some of the, emotional things that kids are going through that you can really grasp when they're in front of you, and even the kids that usually don't do as well in school, they're doing even worse because now you don't have somebody checking on them, and you don't know if they're eating, and it's just a lot of things that we miss about in school. And I think Los Lunas as a whole, and I think pretty much New Mexico as a whole, is really struggling with some of those things right now. Just the social, they keep saying social and emotional learning and those things. I don't know how you can tell those things through a computer. And I think that's where we're struggling the most. And just really trying to make sure we're providing the best we can for kids. And I think that's really hard in online learning.
Coach, I think you bring up a lot of great points. There's no substitution for the human interaction. As you mentioned, you can tell that's what Coach Benjamin of Las Cruces alluded to. You can kind of tell by looking at kids where they are emotionally, if you know them and you have a relationship with them and you see them, not only your football players, but your advanced economics class, your advanced government class, you kind of get a feel if you're that kind of teacher. And I know that you are, and I know the teachers in Las Lunas do a great job in doing that, educating our youth. And so I think you're right. Without that human touch, which sometimes we take for granted, it's right now we're living through some different times. But I think it's important for you to tell, kind of, you just mentioned how important the human touch is. And sometimes we take that for granted because kids, when they're in a comfort zone, in a safety zone, they're taken care of. So you know that they're going to be in that zone, that comfort zone every day, the structure. And when that structure is taken away, it's concerning for the whole community, for the students, for the, and right now there's little we can do right now. Now, hopefully you and I talked about this. There's a way to get the kids back in January safely, right? Of course, everybody's an advocate for that. But I think the points you made are well taken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's just a hard situation. I don't think anybody has the exact answer of how to fix everything going on, but I do think everybody's in agreement that our kids being in school is the best thing for our kids. Now, what that looks like, I think, is what they're still trying to figure out. So, I honestly, my thoughts are we probably won't be going back to school because we haven't even started in Los Lunas with our elementary kids yet, and a lot of places have started that. So, I think we're online for, as far as I can see, at least for a while.
Coach, I want to ask you now. We're going to switch gears, and normally around this time of year, you're getting ready for your next football game. You're preparing. I want to ask the effect on the Los Lunas football team. You had a youth, one of your players, Tyler Keaney, defensive end from UCLA bound, had made a speech a couple of weeks ago, and a very heartfelt speech. And everyone's got their right to express how they feel about these lockdowns and how they're affected mentally. And let's remember that kids are affected mentally by not having that safe zone, right? They're affected by that, and we can't just ignore that. You and I talked about it's probably going to be a 3 to 5 year study, or maybe a gap in learning there, 2 to 4 years, right, of lost learning. We hope not. Now, I'm not trying to be negative about that, but we have to be realistic too. So, talk a little bit about where the kids are as far as Los Lunas football, and you get to see them every day, and the attitudes and things that they might be going through as far as not being able to be out on that field.
Yeah, I mean, we've been lucky to be able to continue to get to at least be around them a couple times a week in our pods, which I think has been a positive thing. Our kids, I think we've really only had maybe a handful of kids that have opted out of our workouts. And so I think that tells you a lot, that our kids are really need to get out of the house, and they need to, get some of the energy out and get off the video games. And the other thing is I think athletics, I think FFA and band and all these, we're a support system for these kids. We're checking grades. We're looking at it's, I think a lot of people, we have a stigma of just being the, a coach that just cares about the sports and winning games. And that's never been my philosophy. And most of the coaches all the coaches I work with, that's not their philosophy either. It's a part of it, but we're trying to be good role models for these kids. And so I think that balance of, getting our kids out and getting them active and working on, the physical as well as the social interaction, and then making sure we're doing it in a safe way. And I think, that we've been given guidelines. I think, I've said it before, I think we provide a safer place for these kids than, honestly, most of them probably even have at home, because of how we're cleaning, and we're forcing mask wearing, and we're forcing the social distancing. It's always funny, we keep 6 feet apart, and this, a van shows up and there's 5 of your kids get out of the same car, and then you make them social distance and wear masks. And so it's just outside of our area, there's no control over what's going on. They don't check temperatures at Walmart and those places. So that's what my argument's always been with the environment that we can create. And I think it's been good for our kids to be there and be a part of it, and get to throw a ball around. And we have a new defensive coordinator this year, so getting to learn some of our new schemes and those things has been a positive thing. I just think it's hard. A lot of these kids, I know people don't like to say it, but a lot of these kids, if they didn't have these activities, not just football, I don't think they would be. I think they would drop out of school and get a GED, and I think that's why we're seeing some of the things with grades is because these kids aren't getting those competitions. We're seeing our grades are, across the state, across the nation are down, and I think that's a part of the process that we're trying to fight too is making sure these kids are going to graduate, whether they get a season or not. But it's hard, they feel like they've been promised something and it just keeps being taken away. And I think that's what you saw in Tyler's speech. He came out and was very heartfelt and from the heart. And this is a kid too that, he could graduate in December and he could go over to UCLA and start early, but it's important to him to finish it with his friends and to finish it for this community and our school and to be a part of this, and so he's just, praying and hoping every day and that we get a season. And I think we all are. And I think we can do it safely. And I think there's been some examples of other states that have done it safely. And so hopefully, that comes to fruition, but we always hope for the best and prepare for the worst. So we'll see how things go in the next few months.
There's a picture of Tyler Keaney, the 6'2", I believe 235-pound defensive end and one of the state's best players, UCLA bound. But Coach, I think you make a good point too in saying about the competition, right? Not only athletic competition, but grade competition, band competition. I remember being in school and hearing presentations from other people and kind of trying to duck and like, oh man, I didn't include that in my presentation or my report, but it made me better, right? And seeing that. So there's more than just athletic competition, and those are important. It drives kids, right? Well, so-and-so got a better grade, and I'm going to get a better grade, right? So academic competition, band competition, period. And not having that, and the social interaction. I was a socialite when I was at school. I loved being at school. I did. And those things are important, as you say. I'm going to ask you one question before we break, and go to go to some commercials. Make a case. You've made a case. You still think it can be done safely with the kids playing, right? Now, some other states have done it for sure, and there's been some outbreaks. But you make your case about why you think it can happen.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like going back to what I said. I mean, I think the environment. We're one of the only places that are making sure our kids are wearing masks. We're social distancing. I always make the joke. They gave us 5-gallon buckets of like hand sanitizer, but it's like, 80, 90% alcohol because you open it and your eyes start burning. I mean, that stuff's going to kill stuff. I mean, we're spraying hands. We're cleaning equipment. We're cleaning the weight rooms. There's an environment that we can create, I feel like. And I think, the thing about New Mexico too is I don't know that we are great at leading and things, but we follow other examples. And I think that's been the hardest thing for our kids and our coaches and even our community is, I think Tyler said in his speech that you got a community in Hobbs who can't compete, and we're in these small pods, and 30 miles east in Texas in little communities, they're playing football. And like in New Mexico, we were fighting to play volleyball and run cross country, and I think we for sure could have done those things safely. And so my case is, I think the NMA did a great job of trying to come up with a schedule and go above and beyond any other state out there, and to get shut down. I think that was really disheartening for our kids and our communities and our state. And so I really think we can do things safely. I think we can provide a safer environment than people have in restaurants or Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or any of these places. So I really think we can do it. And I think our coaches and our kids and our parents are all on board to try to, make that happen. And of course, things could happen and we deal with those as they come, but, we can deal with them, and there can be protocols put in place to deal with them. And so we believe we can do it safely. That's my pitch there.
Coach, that's a great pitch, great case. We're going to come back, and when we do, we're going to show some highlights from last year's Los Lunas football season. We'll be back with Los Lunas head football coach Jeremy Maupin on the sports desk after these messages.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Get into the game with Garden Schwartz Team Sales. They have everything you need, from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms, and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brands like Speedline, Rollins, and Wilson. And don't forget to check out the latest F7 Shut helmet. It's all at Garden Schwartz Team Sales. Give them a call, 505-884-1234. Garden Schwartz Team Sales.
Is this my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up!
Ah!
That's why State Farm is there, with car insurance for when things go wrong, but also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
Talk to State Farm agent Marty Size or Michelle Rudolph in Albuquerque today.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with producer Alden Iowani. Our special guest today is Las Lunas head football coach Jeremy Maupin. And hey, Coach, man, again, thanks so much for being with us. It's always great to talk to you, and I have had numerous conversations over the past 2 years, and I always enjoy talking to you about what you do out there in Las Lunas. You're not only a great coach. I talked to one of your players, and they mentioned the impact you had on them as people. And you know that the football thing is certainly important, but the impact you have as a teacher and a person and someone they remember in a positive way is much more important, all football aside.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're going to go to some highlights here that you sent, and producer Alden Iowani will get them for us. You can't see them, Coach, but you know what you sent, so we'll go over them here real quick and get a look at Las Lunas football. There's some short yardage situation there, and a game against Berlin. And what do you think? It might be Tyler Keaney with the sack there, Coach.
Yes, sir. Yeah, our defensive line, our whole defense last year played really well for us in the season. And Tyler and Bryce Bryce Santana, he's playing at UNM right now. So excited.
Benavidez and with a long pass, and you love the long ball, Coach. You love to stretch the field. And you've got Cade Benavidez was a heck of a quarterback, was able to do that.
Yes, sir.
This is a game at Las Lunas, and might be an interception here. Yes, it was an interception return for a touchdown, Coach. Do you remember that one?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, I think we had 5 of those on the year last year, and that was one of our goals last year, was to really increase our turnovers. So our secondary and our coaches did a great job, and our D-line created a lot of those opportunities as well.
There's your jumbo package, Coach. Short yardage. There's a flicker back to Benavidez, it looks like, and a long pass. You love to stretch the field. I just love your offense and your offensive innovation. There's Benavidez looking right and then looking down the middle, down the seam for a touchdown pass.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think that was against Goddard or Artesia. That was right before halftime in the playoffs.
Talk a little bit about now. You also were an assistant at Artesia, and you mentioned Artesia and New Mexico football, and it's legendary, right? Now, a couple years ago, Richard Tripp and I did the St. Pius Artesia game for the championship. And I remember going down to the field, and Artesia just had that swag. They just had that swag, like the way they went through the drills. They had 29 championships, right? So they had just had that expectation, like, we're going to win. What do you want? What are you doing here? So talk a little bit about some of the things you brought in from Artesia to Las Lunas. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I played in Artesia, and I got to coach with Cooper Henderson, and obviously, he's, I think personally, I know I'm biased, but I think he's the best coach in New Mexico history. And I just, the biggest thing, I remember going up there and watching games. I had 3 cousins that played quarterback in front of me, and I just remember watching them, and I just believed it was going to be my time soon. And when I became, when I got the opportunity to start, I just remember thinking, okay, we're going to win the championship there this year. You just believed it, and you would look up at the press box and see all the footballs and all those things. And, I've never said, Artesia just has the best talent. They bought into a system. Those kids are good kids. They work hard. They have a ton of kids in the program. And so really when I came here, those are the things I brought with me. I remember the first meeting I had with parents. I said, hey, I don't want to fight this in November. I want you guys to know we're going to be, I plan on playing over Thanksgiving break. We're going to practice on Thanksgiving Day. So make sure you're not planning to go out of town for Thanksgiving. I wanted our kids to believe. I wanted them to know that I believed that we had the talent, that we could get the kids, that we have, I think here we have size, we've had speed, we've had, great, I've had 2 great quarterbacks in the 3 years I've been here, and we got a lot more that are coming up the pipe. And I just feel like, we've created an environment here where we have a ton of kids in the program. We 2 platoon, which I think gives kids a fight, because now instead of having 11 positions to fight for, there's 22. We use different kids on kickoffs, and really, I even took my coaches down to Artesia after my first year here, because I think even my coaches just had this think that Artesia is just loaded with huge guys, and they're and I took them down there to watch a workout, and they were just amazed at one, Artesia wasn't huge, and they were amazed at just how hard these kids were working in the off season. And I think that put something into my coaches' minds that we can do the same thing here in Los Lunas, and we just got to get our kids. When I first got here, it was kind of like, oh, the season's over, and all the coaches just left, and it was me and one coach left trying to run the system, and the spring and the summer workouts, and we've really fixed that. And, I've got a great staff right now, the best staff, I think we've gotten a little bit better every year. And so we're really excited about that. And I think our coaches believe, I think the kids are believing, I think we're in this last championship, we were 1 play away from winning, the first championship here and getting to put our first football up on the press box. And I think kids are just excited for that opportunity. And I think our coaches and the communities really supported us, and the administration's really supported us, and athletic period and those things. So I think, everything's pointing up, and hopefully we can get over that hump one day.
I think everything, the winning culture, it's hard to establish, right? Now, I think it's good that you took your coaches down there to Artesia, because people might think, oh, yeah, right, they're loaded, this and that. But Cooper Henderson, as you mentioned, probably one of the top New Mexico coaches of all time, and I think it's good that your coaches got to see that, and you brought a lot of that, developing a winning culture. It takes time, and people need to, you've done that. You've established a winning culture in Los Lunas, and people really, I always look forward to the Los Lunas Boleyn games. I got to do 2 of those, Roger Holian and I, and that, man, that it's excitement, right? I mean, both days were beautiful fall days. You could have asked for a better picture-perfect day to play football. And then the bands, you got the cheerleaders, you got it all. And again, Los Lunas and Boleyn are natural rivals, right? So you had 2 teams really going at it, and you couldn't have asked for a better football atmosphere. And I think you just described the work you did to develop that winning attitude in Los Lunas, but I think your attitude towards it, and I think people you've got that attitude where people they're drawn to you. They're drawn to you and your ways, and that's important too. Some people might try to come in there and be heavy-handed, but I think the way they see you as a person, there's not going to be a lot of problems with that. It's for the betterment, right? They want to win. They want to be part of something special, like Hope Basketball, right? Hope Basketball's won 15 titles, 16 titles, right? It's the same thing with them. They grow up thinking, oh, my brother won one, my cousin won one. It kind of goes down the line. So that's what happened in Artesia, right? Artesia's had 29 championships. So you grow up in that town where you grew up, and people expect that. Like you said, they see the footballs, and the Bulldog Bowl is known, nationwide, Coach. So I think you coming to Los Lunas was a perfect time, and look what you've done there. You've done a wonderful job there.
Yeah, I always told the guys, you know how Artesia's won, 30 or 31, I can't remember, championships. I told, Los Lunas and our coaches, I said, because the first group won one. And then every group after that one believed they were going to win the second one, and then the third one, and the fourth one. And, I remember I was a part of the 23rd and 24th state championships there. And that's how we broke out every practice. It was 2004. We said it was 24 and 04. We broke out every practice. We just believed we were going to be number 24. And that's really, we just want our kids to believe that, hey, they can be the first, and they can be that first football up there, and it's going to create a legacy and a, just like what's been created in Artesia. And, I think Heath Ridenour's done an amazing job in, at Cleveland. And, I think there's, other great program, Lovington's been a great program in its history. Clovis is a rich tradition. We played there last year. That was only the second time I've ever played there, and that's a awesome place to play in. And just the history there, and your Mayfields and these places. Like we can create a similar atmosphere here in Los Lunas, and that's what we tried to do.
One more quick question, Coach. We're going to wrap it up here in a few minutes. You and I are both Dallas Cowboy fans, and we talked a little bit at length about this. Now, they went into the season with a lot of high hopes. I know I had some hopes, and all of a sudden the injuries happened. Quarterback Dak Prescott with a broken ankle. The tackles are both out, Tyron Smith, Lariah Collins. Their offensive line's a mess. Their defense seems to be a mess. Every week they're allowing more yards than almost any team in club history, which is saying a lot. Now, going forward, it seems like they're Andy Dalton is they're operating behind a decimated offensive line. Running back Zeke Elliott has lost a tick of speed. There's no question about it. He doesn't run with the same burst anymore. What do you think the prospects are for the Dallas Cowboys? I mean, the rest of the year, I'm torn. I want them to win, but then the more they win, the higher you want them to get. And it's hard to go in with that mentality. I want them to win, of course, but then I'm thinking, hey, they need to get a high draft pick. What's your opinion on where the Dallas Cowboys will be at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I start out every year, it seems like, pretty optimistic, and they seem to diminish that optimism, fairly quick. It seems like at least the last few years, but I really like Mike McCarthy. I like a lot of things that he did. I know people knocked him in some of his later years there in Green Bay, but I really like Mike. My hope is, just like when I got the job here, I thought it would be a process, and I think it is a process. And you put a new coach, a new coaching staff, then you take away all their preseason games so they don't get any live practice except for, what you can do in practice, which anymore most people aren't going live in practice because of the injuries and those things. So I feel like it was going to take them a few games, and unfortunately the injuries just started mounting up for them in those first few games. And my hope is, the only optimism I have is I think we play in the worst division in the NFL, so we still have a chance to even win the division. So I'm still optimistic that we can get some things put together, and Andy Dalton can come back and do some things, or I think there's a lot of really good backup quarterbacks out there. I'm not a big guy of you give up on the season and I think you still try to develop the guys you have. I hope they play Pollard a bunch, and I hope they get him going, and I hope they get I like some of the things like Cedric Wilson's done, and Noah Brown at receiver, and some guys like that. I think that they could do some things and keep going. I'd love for him to go get Fitzpatrick from the Dolphins, or somebody like that can come in and sling it around a little bit better, just because I think the Cowboys are loaded at receiver. I think one of the best receivers in the league.
Coach, we're going to have to wrap it up, but that's a great assessment of the Dallas Cowboys. We'll have to see where they are at the end of the year. Las Lunas head football coach Jeremy Maupin, thank you so much for being our guest. We'll check with you in a couple of months to see how things are going out there.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, guys. Thank you very much.
You bet. That'll do it for this week's Sports Desk. Stay tuned next Tuesday as our special guest will be West Las Vegas Athletic Director Richard Tripp. For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next week on the Sports Desk.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Sports Network. Don't sacrifice quality and flavor when you're in a hurry. Golden Pride offers ribs, fried chicken, green and red chili breakfast burritos, and Frontier Cinnabons. 4 great locations, or visit us online at goldenpride@abq.com. Golden Pride Barbecue Chicken and Ribs, proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Get into the game with Garden Schwartz Team Sales. They have everything you need from screen printing, embroidery, and digital printing services, high school letterman jackets, and all high school and club uniforms and individual and team apparel with the most reliable brand.